This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Applied Botanics, premium, consistent, and affordable wellness for all. Each of their products features a specialized formula with targeted terpenes to give you a CBD experience that helps you sleep better, take the edge off, and relieve your aches and pains to help you live healthy and happy. Newly added to their CBD lines, in addition to their drops, are new topicals that you can roll on and high-dose CBD edibles to help you find your balance. Visit appliedbotanics.com today and use code word Popko Project at checkout to receive 30% off your first order. Applied Botanics. Live healthy and happy. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Keller's Garden Center and Landscaping Services. Contact Keller's today and get your yard cleaned up before Old Man Winter arrives. And if you're looking for snow removal services, they can take care of that too. Do not break your back this winter. Contact Keller's today and visit their social media pages for more information. My guest today is Mike Bay, frontman of the band Borrowed Sparks from Nashville, Tennessee. In this episode, I talked to Mike about his album, The Prettiest One Left, which is streaming everywhere, as well as the upcoming release of a Tom Petty cover song called Refugee, due out on November 5th, with a live video to follow on November 9th. I had a great time talking to Mike, not only about his music, which, by the way, sounds very similar to the Gaslight Anthem and Frank Turner, but also life in general. Things like what it was like releasing a new album a week before a worldwide shutdown in the midst of a pandemic, the rising cost of gas, our love of late 90s bands, whiskey, parenthood, the pitfalls of the internet, specifically social media, and so much more. And if you get nothing else from this podcast outside of streaming his music, then I've done my job, and that is 100% more than I could ask for. Welcome to the show, Mike Bay of the band Borrowed Sparks. And we're live. Welcome to the show, Mike Bay, a.k.a. Borrowed Sparks.
Thanks for having me, John.
From Tennessee, right? Nashville?
Nashville, yes, sir. Music City.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, so I'm based in northeastern Pennsylvania. I like to say Scranton because that's kind of like a name that people know thanks to The Office.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm from. So and I've been in this local circuit here in this area for about 18 years. So I'm very familiar and kind of rooted in this area. So I'm kind of really excited to be able to talk to someone who is not from here.
Yeah, I don't know that I've been to Scranton. I know I've been to Pittsburgh and a couple other cities that are kind of adjacent.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever been to Scranton.
Yeah, Scranton, Wilkes-Barre. We're 2 hours from Philly. We're 2 hours from New York. That's like one of the whole, like, you know, why do you like living in northeastern Pennsylvania? Well, it's 2 hours from this and that. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pennsylvania's not doing too well in my book right now just because the gas prices are out of control. I think it's the highest in the country. Man. Highest in the country, I think it is.
What are you guys at? What were you at today?
In my town that I saw today was $3.55, but I think like the national average is like $3.50 or something. I forget.
Damn. We're at I filled up today and we were at $3.29.
That's high too,
which is high for us for sure. We're usually sub 3 almost always.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, man. Life's hard.
Yeah, and gas is one of those that like particularly pisses me off because you're getting the same thing. You know, it's not like it's better or worse or, it's the same quantity, the same product, but you're paying more for it.
You know, thanks for making it even worse. I never really looked at it that way before.
I'm just rubbing it in.
My wife's funny because I'll say to her, I'm like, you see what the gas prices are today? It's 20 cents higher than it was last week. And she goes, oh, I don't pay attention because I don't have a choice. I need the gas to get to, where I'm going. And it's like, yeah, there's that too. But still.
That's true. We had a friend I think this past year, maybe it was last year, that him and his wife both drove like Tacomas or some like big SUV, because they were used to having little kids. Now their kids are older, they're in high school and they drive themselves. So he got fed up and he's like, forget it, I'm selling both of them. We're buying one Tesla and we're gonna make it work. And he's happy with it.
Dude, you said things right there that I can relate to. My wife and I, we have a 4-year-old. He'll be 4 in December. And we both had 2 big vehicles. She had a Honda Pilot. I had a Kia Telluride. The Kia Telluride was like my first ever brand new car that I ever had in my entire life. Like true brand new. Like I think it was 16 miles on it when I bought it. But again, they were both big vehicles. We have one child, hoping for a second, but right now we have one. And her lease was up on her Honda Pilot, and I just said, you know what, we just need one like big family vehicle, and for me to have a car to get from point A to point B. So I had a Kia Telluride, and like for the first time in my life, people would see the car and be like, "Oh, that's one of those new Tellurides." Like, "Oh, that's really nice." Like people were like curious about the vehicle. So I gave her the Kia Telluride, and I got a Honda Civic that every Joe Blow in America has.
Right. Gas mileage friendly.
Yes, it's Civic. Very good in gas, but it's just like I'm climbing out of it. It's like trying to get my son in his car seat in the back seat of that car is not good. It's a challenge, but I mean, I think there's worse things I could be complaining about. But yeah. So you mentioned that they downsized. Good for them. They downsized to a Tesla. So I was just in a Tesla for the first time in my entire life last week. My buddy just bought one maybe a month ago, and I said, "You gotta take me for a ride." So you ever been in one?
No, I haven't.
So you get in and it's like there's like nothing inside. There's one big screen and really that's it. Like there's nothing that you're used to on the dashboard. There's no, odometer behind the steering wheel, things like that. Just that one big screen in the center. And he was talking about how fast it goes. So we got to a point where we can like kind of hit the gas a little bit. And I shouldn't even say gas because it's not even gas powered. But
language, yeah.
Yeah, he talked about how fast it was. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's pretty fast. But how fast could it be? He hit it. And my head almost exploded. My equilibrium was so off. It went from 0 to like 40 so quick. I can't even describe. I'm still talking about it a week later. I can't even describe to you how fast this car is. Like I felt like I was on a roller coaster that went like from stop to like 60 miles an hour in like a second. It was the wildest thing I've ever been in.
It's because it's like what, a fraction of a second to get up to 0 to 60 or something like that. I don't remember the numbers, but
I think it's like 3 seconds to get to 60. I don't remember, but like I can't do it justice. Me talking about it's not going to matter. If you have a chance to get in one, just pretend like you want to go buy one and take it for a test drive. Craziest thing I've ever been in.
I had a friend who sold them. She worked at like the dealership, and she was like, "Oh yeah, just come by and like you can just test drive one, and it you can just take it out for the afternoon and drive it and whatever." And I should have done it while she was there. She ended up quitting that job, but that would have been my opportunity because I'm probably not gonna drop the cash anytime soon for one of those.
No. But if you have a friend, if you have an opportunity to even just get in the car with them driving, just have them hit it, and you'll know what I mean.
Is this like the friend who owns a boat? Like you don't necessarily want to be the guy who owns the boat. You want to be friends with the guy who owns the boat and pays all the expenses. And
exactly. Yeah. No, He does not own a boat. I think this is probably the first thing this guy's ever splurged on in his entire life. Nick, if you're listening, you're cheap. I'm not going to lie. But I'm happy that you spent the money on the Tesla. So you have a band called Borrowed Sparks, or are you the band and you just go under the moniker Borrowed Sparks? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of more like a moniker. I think of it like a like a dashboard confessional kind of thing. Like Chris, that is Dashboard, right? Mm-hmm. And if he showed up with his acoustic guitar and sang those songs, you'd be like, oh wow, there's
there's Dashboard Confessional. And if you showed up with a band, it'd be the same thing, different dynamic and all that stuff. That being said, up until this point, I've had the same guys playing with me, which is awesome. Guys I've been friends with forever, and guys who the three of them have played together for well over a decade. So they're like, they come together as like a unit, and they're just great and ready to rock. And then I just have to keep up with them, basically, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess your marketing online is doing well, because I found you, and I don't remember if it was on Instagram or what it was, but it was kind of like, if you like this band, and in this case it was Gaslight Anthem, or Brian Fallon, who's the lead singer of that band, you would like Borrowed Sparks. So I hit play, and I was like, wow, this is great stuff. And it's very similar to Gaslight Anthem. So anybody out there listening who likes that band, check these guys out. Great stuff. And I went to your page on Instagram expecting to have like hundreds of thousands of followers. I don't know how you don't yet.
Well, thank you.
The music, no, it's great. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. So yeah, how did this band form? You're in Nashville. Is this something that just started, and that's why you're still building this thing, or kind of just tell the audience and me, how it all started?
Yeah. So I'm in Nashville now. I've been here about 10 years. Prior to being here, I grew up in St. Louis, played in bands, but I was mostly a guitarist. I ended up singing and fronting one band in there before I moved here, but I had kind of a serendipitous moment where I was in Nashville to see Springsteen. Springsteen was playing Nashville, and it was only 5 hours from St. Louis. So I was like, oh, I'll drive down. I got a couple of friends here. It'd be nice to see, and I'll go to the show. And I had dinner with a friend who's a singer in a band. He said, hey, our guitarist just quit. I know you live far away, but if you ever thought about relocating, we'd love to have you. So I relocated, which is insane.
It was just like that. You're like, okay, yeah, I'll move.
It was, that's the gist of it, but it was a bunch of things. I don't love the idea of fate, but it, as close as I can see it, like so many things lined up in my life where it was like, oh, this is the path. Like, this is the way to go. And so I ended up here. I played in that band. We toured for probably 4 or 5 years. And then the singer and his brother, who's the bass player, they moved to Dallas to be closer to family. And I was like, well, I moved once for this band. I don't know that I can move twice. And was here, and I was like, well, what do I do? And I had been writing songs on my own, but really just as a therapy, just to process life and the things that happen. And I had this batch of songs, and I went to my friend Darren, who's produced the record, and I was like, hey, I got this group of songs. Some of them I think are like punk rock songs, and I think some of them are like Americana singer-songwriter things. I was like, which record should we make? If we're going to make a record, where should we go? And he was like, well, why don't we just put it all together? Why try to piece it apart? Why not take all of the pieces of your musical identity and who you are, just merge it together and try to make the best of it? So that's kind of how the project happened. And then the record came out March of 2020, about 7 days before the whole world shut down. That's the story for a lot of bands and artists, and nobody saw it coming. Wow. I was with my wife. We were in Vegas for a work trip for her, and it was the week before anything happened. So we saw things happening in Vegas. We had heard about like the virus and it being in China and parts of the East and Europe, but like there's been pandemics, specifically like SARS and that kind of things. Like those have happened, but it's always been overseas, and you kind of watch it from a distance. You see the news report, but it never gets here or never has an effect here until now. So we're in Vegas, and they are like closing casinos, like MGM, Caesar's Palace, like all these major casinos are closing one by one by one. And we flew home thinking like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is wild. We've never seen Vegas close like that. Just it is mind blowing.
It's impossible, right? We thought it was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, we got there, everything was normal. And then by like the day we were leaving, they had like a worker at every door. Every time you open the door, they were like wiping it down with glass cleaner or disinfectant or something. And the workers had started to wear masks. We didn't even know about masks at that point. Like it wasn't even something that people were talking about, but it was really eerie. And then we got home and the shutdown was announced, and the record had come out that Friday. I think the shutdown happened on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So the record was out, and then one by one, like the tour and everything canceled, and ended up picking up on the live stream thing, which was really cool. For a while, that was like, it was definitely best case scenario, because I would just reach out to bands and other songwriters and be like, hey, what are you doing on Wednesday night? You want to do like a joint live stream and swap some songs and stories and whatever, and just have a good time. And that was really fun early pandemic. And then it kind of trickled off. I think people were like, okay, I'm bored with this, back to Netflix or whatever. But yeah, long story short, that's kind of the origins of it. And here we are like a year and a half later, I guess.
Yeah. Did you have a heavy schedule set up for 2020?
Not heavy, not crazy. I was probably I think I was shooting for 50-ish dates that year, which, I'm small time. Like I do everything myself at this point. But being a first release and having played in other bands, I kind of had new connections with venues and whatnot, and could make some things happen. But then a lot of those venues shut down over the COVID thing. So,
and regardless, you have this like piece of art that you want to share with the world, and it's like, again, I'm not saying this because you're in front of me. The reason I reached out to you, and thank you for accepting my invitation. My invite to do this was because I heard it and I'm like, this is really excellent stuff. Like I can't say it enough. I shared it with people at work who are also Gaslight Anthem fans, and like, wow, this is excellent. But you had this piece of art in your hands, and not in your hands, but and you can't share it. And it's like, it's gotta be like almost heartbreaking.
It is. And like my favorite thing about, like I said earlier, I write songs for my own therapy, to work through my own stuff, and then putting it out into the world, it was like, okay, cool, now I can connect with people over this, which is my favorite thing about music. Like all of my best friends, we've connected over a band or an album, or multiple bands and multiple albums or concerts, and these have been things that have just kept me going through my life. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, now I can be on the other side of that, and I can hopefully share my experience with somebody who's like, oh yeah, I've been through that kind of hard time, or I've been through that kind of good time, and connect on that. And not having the live show to do that was kind of tough, but it's coming back now. Done a little bit of touring this year, not a ton. I think next year will be a lot better.
Okay.
I think next year venues will be less hesitant, booking agents, bands, because really up until recently, I felt like bands have just been canceling shows like crazy. Even bigger, arena bands, and you don't question it. You're just like, oh, okay, well, somebody got COVID, you got to cancel the show, and that's cool. I agree with that, but like, it's crazy how that's kind of become the norm. Like you buy tickets, and then Is the show going to happen? I don't know. It's a 50-50.
Yeah. I had tickets to go see here in town, Korn and Stained. And we literally pulled up into the parking lot, and I got out of my car, and a guy's walking through and he's like, concert's canceled, go home. Now he's a guy, he's got a backpack over his shoulder. I'm like, this could be a joke.
Oh,
It could be for real. I have no idea. But then I see these cars like coming up from the bottom lot, like coming to try and leave. And I'm like, you know what? I mean, nothing will surprise me now. And eventually we got wind of, it was for sure canceled. Someone in Korn had contracted COVID. And so we sat in the parking lot for an hour and had some beers, and we made a good thing out of a bad situation. But yeah. So we pull up to the the venue, and it's canceled. And I mean, I just went and saw Blue October last Saturday.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, great band. I've seen them a few times. And I think the night before, at least to my knowledge, the venue had put something on the news, or maybe it was the band put something on their Facebook page saying that, like, in order to get into the show, you had to show your vaccine card or a negative test within 72 hours. So there's that too. People are walking up to venues and saying, "Well, I'm not vaccinated. I don't have a test, a negative test to show you. What do we do?" So it's another wild thing. And like, I'm vaccinated. My wife's vaccinated, but we still got into the venue and wore a mask when we were like really close to people, because this is kind of our first indoor show that we had been to since this all happened. So it was kind of weird. I don't know.
It feels weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And I'm not a big fan of vaccine mandates. I'm not going to sit here and get into how you feel about vaccines. It's not the time or place for it, but I don't like the mandate on things like that. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. But that's the situations we're kind of dealing with.
Yeah, we've had here in town in Nashville, there's quite a few like independent venues. So most of your larger venues across the country are owned by Live Nation, or they're owned by iHeartRadio, or some of these other companies. And they can, when you're a band and you work with those companies, they can say, oh, well, we'll book your whole US tour in our venues. The downside to that is they call the shots, and what happens at one venue, it's a corporation essentially. So like, it happens systematically throughout the rest of the company, which is just venues across the United States, or the world, really, for some of them. But in Nashville, we've got a lot of independent venues, and there's advantages and disadvantages of that too. But they kind of got together and all said, okay, we're going to require vaccine cards or negative tests for these shows, which are definitely regional and nationally touring acts, but it's also local acts, which has been interesting. We did a festival here called 615 Fest, which is our area code. And I was talking to the promoter, and he was saying that he thinks turnout has been really bad since all of that has gone through, and that the venues are kind of suffering from that. And I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do, just that it's people are feeling it. It's a weird. I think we all had this fairy tale in our head that we were going to wake up one day and be like, oh, life is back to normal. And that's not going to happen. It's not going to be 2019 overnight.
Ripple effects for sure. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, we were told 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And here we are a year and a half later. Still.
And then, we're learning and adapting. And I think we've done some things right, and I think we've done some things wrong. But that's part of the learning process. Is getting it right, getting it wrong, hopefully learning when you get it wrong. But the venues requiring the vaccine cards has been interesting here, just locally. Like, I'll go see friends play shows, and some people are wearing masks, some people aren't. You know, the venues are not full where they used to be full. So it'll just take some time, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take. I hope it's quicker than we all think, but
yeah,
it's
it's
a struggle. Yeah, I mean, I don't. If my heart goes out to you guys, and I'm going to ask you this question because I've asked every musician that I talk to this question, and most of them have been the same. Actually, everyone who I've talked to has been the same. You know, as an artist, a musician, you know, you create and you perform in front of people. That's a big outlet for you as a musician. And how are you able to deal without having that? I know you mentioned the live streams and things like that, but like that's not the same as being on the stage and feeling the energy from the crowd and just kind of, you know, sharing your work with an audience. I mean, how did you get through the past year and a half as a musician that could not perform live?
Man, I think for me, it's been like writing and recording more. It does feel like for me, the process is like, okay, live your life, write about your life, and then share that with people. So it does feel like for this first record, like that hasn't fully come around. Like it's not a finished thing. And I think that it just makes it harder as an artist to move on to the next thing, because you got to have like, it's like sitting on a record. If you've been in the studio, you recorded a record and it's done, but you haven't released it yet, it's weird to start the next thing because it's not the thing before that isn't done. So I think that's been a big part of it for me. It's just like, it's hard to move forward to the next thing and create the next song or record or piece of art. That being said, we've been in the studio this past year making music and trying to push forward, even if our live opportunities are kind of sort of limited.
Yeah, and one reason we wanted to talk tonight was because you have some exciting things coming up. November 5th, you're releasing a cover of a Tom Petty song. And then a few days later, you're doing a live video of that song as well from Smokestack in Nashville.
Yeah.
So obviously you're keeping busy. You're pushing music out. You know, talk a little bit about this upcoming release. Why Tom Petty? Why the song you chose? And just all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so it was back in June, we went into the studio called the Smokestack, which is kind of a legendary studio here. There's lots of records that have come out of there. But it just has a really cool vibe. It's got tons, it's just wall to wall with gear. You got amps and there's a whole wall of drum kits and then another wall of bass amps. And then the other wall has guitar amps and guitars and all kinds of stuff. There was literally, I think it was 50 acoustic guitars in the recording room, just open and like right there on stands ready to play. When we went in, we did this recording, we brought a film crew with us and we shot a live video for every song on the record. So I was kind of thinking, you know, we can't do a lot of shows with things being the way they are, but like we could bring people into the studio with us and do a video. So we brought the film crew in, we cut everything live for this whole EP. And the first song is a Tom Petty tribute. It's Refugee, which is a favorite of mine. But we had been doing it. We talked about adding a cover for live shows. And the bass player, Cody, was like, what about Refugee? And I was like, okay, cool. Let's try it out. And we threw it together in a rehearsal and it was like right away, it just worked. And it right away felt like something that would fit in with the other songs. It didn't feel like, oh, you're copy pasting Tom Petty, which
I'm not against doing that either. But it felt like, okay, this is one of our songs. Like we kind of made it our own. And also growing up, I was just a huge Tom Petty fan. It was one of those artists. I think of like the Eagles. I think of Fleetwood Mac or Steely Dan, and these records and these artists that I would listen to as a kid before I even developed my own taste. Like I would listen to with my dad or whatever in the car. And then I grew up and I'm like, damn, this stuff is still good. Like it was good then. It was good for my parents, and it was good for me as a kid. And then as an adult, I'm like, this is still that good. Like, yeah. And I think that's rare. Back in the day, you didn't have that many bands putting out music. It wasn't as accessible. Now everybody, you and I could make a record this weekend and release it to Spotify next week. And like, you know, but that didn't happen. You had to be really good.
Yeah.
And Petty and the Heartbreakers were like, not only that good, but they were the best of that group. So huge influence on me as a songwriter, as a musician. The fact that not only do the songs hold up, but the production holds up. Like they still sound good. It's still cool. So anyway, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to do a Petty cover when we started talking about covers. And then it happened so quick. I was like, we got to put this out. You know, we got to find a way to capture this. And then being in the studio, we could have tracked it individually, which is how, for anybody who doesn't know, like normally making a record today, you'd go and you'd record the drums by themselves. So you can get really great drum sounds. And then you go and you record the bass, and then you do a guitar and you do another guitar and all that. You kind of layer stuff as it goes. But Petty didn't really have much of that. They were kind of getting to that in his career, but a lot of it was you recorded live, and the band just had to be good. You just had to work your ass off to where you weren't going to be the guy who screwed up. Because if you did a take and the guitar player messes up a riff, it's a bad take, even if everybody else plays it perfect.
Right.
So you kind of had to elevate everybody. And that was a cool thing for the band too, was to really kind of woodshed and rehearse till we all had our stuff down.
That's going to be tough. You know, you're doing a song live and recording live.
It was a different way to do it, for sure. And I don't know that it was better, but we got the tracks back, and then went and mixed them, and was listening back with my producer Darren, and we were like, and this sounds like almost as good as the studio record that we did, but there's this like strange Fifth Element kind of thing happening where it's like there's a vibe to this that you can't capture if everybody plays separately. And it's not even like the bleed between the instruments. It's just kind of if the drummer slows down a little bit, the bass player is going to slow down with him. Mm-hmm. And they're going to kind of rub and grind, but it's not going to happen right away. Drummer might slow down first, bass player slows down a little bit later, and you get this really cool kind of flow to things that if you were tracking it, you'd be like, oh, let's do that take again. Right. You know, let's get that more locked in. And this has that messiness that I think is really cool.
Yeah, it's true. It's authentic. It's real.
Yeah.
And it's very well done. I'm not surprised at all. I mean, I heard the song, I've seen the video. I'm looking forward to seeing some more when you guys put out the other stuff, if that's a plan. But you mentioned, like, I always talk about, I don't know how old you are, but I always say how, like, you know, our generation is never going to have, like, you know, our parents having the Rolling Stones and, you know, Tom Petty and things like that. Like, I think if anything, our generation has, you know, equivalent to that, maybe, you know, Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, There's probably a couple more other ones, but like I think that's probably the tail end of bands that have that staying power, that can keep producing record after record, who in 20 years will, like hopefully my kid says to his friends, hey, when I remember my dad playing this album and it's just as good today as it was back then, or maybe better at that point. I don't know. But I mean, I just don't see, music the way it is today, especially the way it's released. It's constantly singles here and there, and producing a full length album is kind of rare, I guess you could say. But
it's hard to do for sure. I mean, I think if you're a band like the Foo Fighters, it's a no brainer to do a full length because people will buy it, right? Yeah. Like the Foo Fighters released a record, you and I are going to buy it. Lifelong fan, probably going to buy every record they put out. But if you're a smaller band, it's the cost of doing a full 10, 12, 15 song record versus what you get back is just, with music being streamed now, like people are digesting singles. They're not digesting, for the most part, they're not digesting full records, which is a bummer because I love records. I like to think of them as like, it's a book, and you wouldn't open a novel and read chapter 17 and then put it back on the shelf. Right. That would you would get such a poor experience from that. But with records, that's what we're doing now. It's obviously it's a little different, but I had a friend tell me something that was really interesting. He was like, music has always shifted to the medium. So think about 45s or not 45s, but singles back in the day on vinyl. Like your single was 3.5 minutes long because that's all they could fit on a record. It's not that people weren't writing songs that were 6 minutes long. It's you couldn't fit it.
Right.
And then you've got like Zeppelin comes along and they have 6 and 8 and 12 minute songs, but you have the format at that point to do that. So it's an interesting thought that like, as much as the format has shifted to the music, maybe more so that the art has shifted to the format. And we're seeing that with streaming now, like bands are releasing single after single. Maybe they put it together for a record, maybe they don't, but you used to do one single, maybe two. And now it's like, you're going to do almost every song as a single.
Right. Yeah. So, I've talked to bands who are promoting a single release like they would be in a full length album, 10, 15 years ago. What are your thoughts? That's how it's been for it with pop music forever. Yeah.
I guess I probably fall into rock and roll, but like, I love pop music. I love jazz. I love country. I love blues, anything. Give it to me. And I'm like, I'm into it. But that's been the format for pop. I mean, even think about in the 90s and early 2000s, like, yeah, those bands released records, but only to put enough singles together to sell you something because you were going to buy a record. I remember as a kid in high school or even junior high, going to Walmart and you could buy single CDs that were singles, and everybody was doing that. Like anything from pop to rock to whatever, everybody would put out their single, or maybe it was like 2 songs.
Yeah, it was like on a CD. Tease. It was a tease.
Yeah. And we would buy that stuff.
Yeah. And then we buy it again when it came out on the actual CD.
Right.
They knew how to get us every which way.
A lot of money.
Yeah, every which way they get us.
But now it's not like that. I think there's a bunch of different ways to look at it. I think one of the positive things is like, if I sold you a record, I would get that cash now, but then that's it. If you're streaming it, you might stream this record for 10 years.
Yeah.
Before it fizzles out and moves on into the ether of old music. But that streaming revenue and that connection comes back. It doesn't get lost in your record collection. It doesn't get sold to a secondhand record store or something like that. It has the potential, at least, to stick around longer.
Yeah, I could agree with that. But I mean, how do you feel with the fact that, I mean, you said it before, any guy or girl can create music and put it on Spotify? I mean, I'm an idiot. I have a podcast. Like, it's on Spotify. Like, anybody who wants to do anything can just go do it, which is great. It's great. I love the ability that I have to do this, and, you know, whatever it is. But I mean, do you feel how many millions of podcasts are there? I mean, like, I'm not gonna be the next Joe Rogan.
Never know.
I mean, how? I wish. I'm a huge fan. We'll get that off the table there. But I mean, it's almost oversaturated. And how as a musician with music, how do you kind of break through all the noise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, more accessibility to art is always a good thing. You know, you know if it's good or not. You know if it resonates with you or if it doesn't. And if the guy who spends $30 on a microphone and an interface puts a record on Spotify, like, I have to trust that if it's not good, it's not going to resonate. Now, the flip side of that coin is that same guy who really has something to say and is like a damn fine songwriter with no resources or connections, he can get his work out the same way that any other artist can get it out. And I think that's been more of a negative in the past, is that artists that are really, really great can't get their music out.
Sure.
I would rather have an oversaturated market where the really great artists with no connections and no resources can get their music out than a market that isn't necessarily oversaturated, but artists have to have connections or money to get something into the world. I think that's bad for most people.
Or smart advertising.
Yeah. Advertising is expensive.
Right. But it's pretty neat how you can target people. Like I was targeted, that says, hey, if you like X, Y, and Z, you might like this.
Well, it's incredible the way like online marketing is now. It's super accessible, scalable, so you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a billboard.
Right.
You can spend $2 a day on a Facebook ad that can be specifically targeted to dudes in their 30s to 40s in Pennsylvania that like the Gaslight Anthem. Like you can get that specific.
How dare you? How did you know? How did you know?
You can really zone in on your demographic or what you think is your demographic. Yeah. And that's marketing. It was really funny because that ad that you're talking about, I ran that really early because when I put my stuff on Spotify, it tells you like a recommended if you like. Are you familiar with this thing on Spotify? So there's a section, if you click on a band, it'll say recommended if you like these like 5 or 10 artists. I didn't really know where my music lands at the time. I think that's weird as an artist to be like, what does your music sound like? Give me 3 bands that, that everyone knows that it's close to. That's for press to do. Like the artist doesn't need to do that because that gets murky. And then you're like, oh, well, my identity is in sounding like this or sounding like that. And I don't think that's good for the artist who's trying to just create something that's genuine. But Spotify told me, like, the Gaslight Anthem or some other bands. So I put out this ad that was just a recommended if you like. Hey, if you like this band, you'll probably like this other band. And it was so funny because I got like 70% people like yourself. They're like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is like I do like this, and I do like this new thing. And then I got like 30% trolls, just like hard internet trolls that were like, how dare you compare your music? It's not nearly as good. Blah. And I'm like, it's not like I'm stealing their revenue here.
Right.
Like these bands that like Spotify does this, Apple Music does this, YouTube does this. Like you just saw it in a different light. And the angry troll response was hilarious.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, I think the internet would fall apart at this point without them. I think they're holding up the bridges. They're underneath the bridges as trolls, holding up the internet, for better or for worse.
What an amazing thing the internet is. Like we're talking about, you being able to promote your music and all that kind of stuff in an effective way. But like, there are so many people out there who are sitting behind a keyboard and typing things out that they would never ever say to your face if you were, face to face to them. Just an amazing, amazing world. I always say we're so connected, but we're more connected now than ever before. But I feel like we're also like in the same breath where we don't know how to communicate with each other. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
Yeah. My wife and I have had this conversation quite a bit because she is the optimist in our relationship, and I am definitely like the hardcore pessimist. I think that's a musician thing. But her take is like the internet is this really good thing that has brought resources and opportunities to people that would have otherwise never had them. Not to mention like developments in technology, people communicating across the globe that would have never been able to communicate to solve like big picture problems, all kinds of stuff. And totally right. Mine is like
100%.
I'm the pessimist who's like, well, I see the opposite side of that coin where all the bad things. And, like you're saying, we communicate more, but we dehumanize each other because it's not a face. Like, this is the best we've got. Like, I can see your face. But if it was just a picture of me and we were typing back and forth, it's hard to see the humanity there.
Yeah.
And I think we say things to each other that we would never say in person.
Never.
Over a keyboard war that is like, maybe it's really important, but I think that it's no longer, unfortunately, it's no longer a format for like real conversation, because you can't. If we had a conversation about something important in person, I think we would both walk away and be like, okay, I see your point of view. I'm taking some thoughts. Maybe I didn't change my opinion completely, but I'm at least absorbing yours.
Right.
And what I see online, and this is just my experience, but it's people who are reading your comment just so they can go on some other website, find why you're wrong, come back and tell you that you're wrong. It's not like no one's there to learn or to grow. So it's kind of like, it's just not really a place for growth anymore.
No,
which is a bummer.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's so crazy to me. It really is. And you can't. Go ahead.
Well, if you or somebody that listens knows of a place where this is happening and people are having a real conversation, send it to me, because I would love to be there. But places like Twitter, Facebook, like all I see is majority negative and people not treating each other very well. It's like, I don't want to hang out there.
Yeah.
I don't want to spend my time on those things. So,
well, it's such a tribal mentality. It's like, if you don't agree with me, you're against me. It's like, well, when did that happen? Like, when was someone's opinion and their viewpoints just like completely just disregarded? It's wild to me.
It's a bummer. It really is, because I think it can and could still be like this great tool for connecting people. And instead, it's, again, pessimist. It's more of a tool that divides people in a lot of ways. And
100%.
Man, have you listened to I'm going to fangirl for a second. Have you listened to this new Noah Gungerson record?
No, but I'm going to write it down.
Okay. You're probably familiar with his stuff. He's a songwriter, singer-songwriter kind of style, kind of dabbles in some pop stuff. And he just put out this record a couple weeks ago that has a couple songs that kind of touch on how he sees the world has been affected by social media and internet. One of his big points is like, we've got too much information.
Mm-hmm.
We got too much, like we can't really digest that much information. There's no way that I could read all of these news outlets and scientific journals, just talking about COVID and vaccinations. Like I'm just a dude who has a job and a family and other shit to do. I don't have time or capacity to do that. But it's almost like, well, it's accessible, so why aren't you that educated?
Well, right. And I also think like we can't trust what is being given to us. We really can't. And the news outlets, I think the media is a large part of the problem of misinformation than a single person might be. And they're all for the clicks. They're all the headlines they create are so you click on it and they build ad revenue from it that way. It's not like you back in our parents' day, and I talk about this a lot with just people at work or whatever. Like they think our generation is a bunch of soft babies and we need mental health days and things like that, right? I think every generation says that about the previous or
I was going to say
or whatever it is.
Their parents said that about them.
Yeah, but
like we'll probably say that about our kids.
Yeah, but you really think about it. You think about like the world now compared to again, I don't know how old you are, but like our parents. I'm 38. I'll be 39 in a week from today.
Oh, happy birthday! Early birthday.
I appreciate it. I don't know when this will go out.
I'll be 35 in November, so we're pretty close.
All right, I felt like you were younger, but
thank you, bless you.
But I don't know when this will go out. This will probably go out next week, so this might be post my birthday, but whatever, not important. But like when our parents would they go to work 9 to 5, they'd come home and work was done for the day, right? Mm-hmm. They come home, it was family. They weren't, and they watched the 5 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news, and for the most part, I think whatever was delivered to them was probably pretty accurate. Now, we go to work and like we're still accessible to work when we're home because of our phones, and we're kind of been trained to never kind of stop and never shut off, and things need to be addressed even when you're not on the clock. And then a 24-hour news cycle, I think, is unhealthy too, because it's constant. And it's like they don't. My friend was talking the other day. It's like how everything is breaking news. Like, a tree fell on a house. Breaking news. Where back in the day, breaking news was like we're going to war with whoever, or a volcano erupted and thousands of people are dead.
Yeah.
Everything's breaking news now. It's like silly. It's just like it's constant like fear mongering. It's just like just constant like just it doesn't ever just shut off. And I don't know if that's how you feel or not, but that's how I feel. I'm constantly like worried about my kid growing up in this atmosphere because I half my life was spent with the internet or without the internet and half of it was with it. So like I kind of was introduced to the internet when I was more towards an adult, and I wasn't as persuaded or influenced by that world. Our kids now, that's all they're going to know.
Yeah.
And you think about bullying, that it goes outside of school. People bully other kids online, and I just can't imagine. And I'm going to have to try and navigate that. And I probably shouldn't worry about it right now, but I do.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're a parent. That's your job, to worry about the things that your kids aren't worried about yet. And try to have some foresight and get ahead of that for them. I think, man, there's so much I want to say on that. One of those things, you know, the 24-hour news cycle and the work day kind of being 24 hours too. I think one of the issues is that our information is so targeted. So we were talking about marketing earlier. It's the same thing. If you go on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and you follow Fox News or you follow CNN or you follow any major news network, like you're getting targeted by folks who are marketing in that vein. So let's say you went and followed CNN. Well, other companies can target people who follow CNN or people who follow Fox or people who follow NBC or any media, really anything, but news networks specifically. And then they can say, oh, well, this person is in our camp and they feed you more. So you get further and further from the folks that you disagree with on the other side. And and it's happening to them the same. So it's pulling everyone apart.
Right.
Whereas, sure, back in the day, like our parents' generation, everybody watched the 6 o'clock news, and there was 2, 3, maybe 4 networks that you could watch, and they were slightly different, but for the most part, that was it. You watched your network that night, they reported something, that was it. But now it's like you watch that network because you're not, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not sitting down and watching the news at 6.
No.
Like we're getting it through, a lot of it is through social media.
Sure.
Or maybe YouTube or something like that. But then you can be targeted beyond that. So what you're seeing is, oh, the world is such a disaster and it's because of this. Or your neighbor is seeing, well, the world is such a disaster, but it's because of this and it's that guy's fault. And your feed is telling you it's that guy's fault. And it's like, neither one of those are true.
Right.
And we used to, I think, be able to see the common ground a lot better without that, and makes it tough.
Yeah.
To come together on stuff that, like, I think would be small time stuff that is big issues now. I think would be small time stuff if we could, most of us get together and be like, oh yeah, there's more common ground here than there is not. And we can make this work. We can find a compromise. But instead it's like, no, you're wrong. I'm right. This is black and white. It's like, nothing is black and white.
Yeah. You can go to hell. You're not on my team.
Yeah. It's just not, that's not reality.
Yeah. Well, enough about the doom and gloom.
Yeah. Talk about some good shit.
You talk about having things in common. And one thing I saw about you since we started conversing over the internet was that the Counting Crows album, August and everything after, is like in your top 10. Now,
for sure.
For me, I saw that and I'm like, my man. Like for me, it's like it's top 5. That may have been
all right, top 5.
Yeah, it was at 93, I think it was, and so I was like 11, and my cousins will still make fun of me to this day. They would come in for a week every summer, and they stay the week with my family. And at the time, I had purchased the tape of that release on cassette tape, and I would play it on this little cassette player that I had, and I would like wake up before everyone else, and I was just sitting in the dining room of my grandparents' house, and I'd playing the cassette and reading the lyrics from like start to finish. And I just remember that so vividly. And that band is like one of like the first, like, I don't know, it's not the first band that I ever fell in love with, I guess. Maybe it is, but that was like, really special for me. So when I saw that, I was like, I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan and have like followed since around that same time. It was probably like, I remember 1996 being a huge year for music for me as a kid. It was kind of like I remember as a kid, my dad's he's not a musician, but he's was a big music nerd when I was growing up. And he was a member of this like CD catalog thing.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Do you remember this?
Yeah, like you paid a penny, I think it was, and you got all these CDs, but it was not.
I don't remember
not
what
true.
I don't remember what it was. What I do remember is that he would he'd get this big thick catalog like every quarter, and you would order which CDs you wanted. CDs were pretty new at the time, so it was, God, I sound old. But CDs were pretty new, so he had a lot of records on vinyl, and he was mostly like getting them on CD because now we could listen to them in the car, and obviously you couldn't do that with vinyl. So it was a lot of stuff that he had already had, but then they would send you, like if you ordered 5 CDs, they'd send you 5 CDs of something new or something that you didn't order. And that's how I found the Counting Crows. It's how I found the Wallflowers. I remember that's how I found Bush. I don't know if you were a Bush fan in the 90s, but Bush was
I'll tell you
dope.
Stories about that too.
But I remember, this is really funny. We got one of the CDs that he didn't order was 16 Stone. And if you remember, the cover that I remember was Stonehenge, but it said Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
Okay. And my dad looked at that and he said, "Oh," I said, "Dad, this looks cool. Let's listen to it." Part of the caveat of the CD club was if you opened the CD, you owned it. You had to pay for it. But if you didn't open it, it was cool. So I was like, "Dad, let's open this and listen to it." And he looked at it and he said, "Oh, this is Rush. You don't want to listen to this." And he sent it back.
No.
Turns out it was Bush that I did want to listen to. I probably would not have liked Rush. But anyway,
I like Rush now, but not. I wouldn't have liked it back then.
I don't think I could have. Yeah, I don't think I could have got past the vocals, and I don't think I would have been into the musical, like the musicality side of it enough at that age to be like, oh, what they're doing is really cool. And I think I would have been like, who is this middle-aged woman singing?
Fair.
And now I'm like, oh, it's Geddy Lee, and he's playing bass, singing, and playing keyboards with his feet. Yeah. Like, that's incredible. But that's how I got a ton of music early on, stuff that seems to have stuck with me till now. 90s rock and stuff like I'm total Matchbox 20 fan. Like
absolutely.
That kind of stuff. Man, one of the biggest biggest bummers of the pandemic for me was Matchbox 20 had announced the Matchbox 20 2020 tour, and the Wallflowers were opening. And I was like, this is going to be the best day of my life.
Yeah.
This is, and obviously they had to cancel because of COVID, but total geek for that stuff.
Their first album was phenomenal.
Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
So good. And like
songs, but then the musicality, it's kind of, I'm not comparing them to the Beatles. I'm saying that in the same sense as the Beatles, like when you listen to a Beatles song, you're like, oh, that's really cool. If you picked up a guitar and tried to play a Beatles song, most of them, you'd be like, what is going on? Like, this is different. This is strange. You got to work at it. And Matchbox 20 had a lot of stuff like that too, where like you pick it up and you try to play it and you're like, oh, this is not the simple pop song that I thought it was. It just kind of came off that way on the radio, which I think is very cool.
Yeah. And there's a lot of songs on that album that were like fantastic that never even got radio play. Was it Coda? I think one of the songs.
Oh, Cody.
Yeah,
it's a great song.
Great song.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Dang, what is the name of that record?
Their first one. It had Push.
Yeah.
Was it You or Someone Like You or something like that? Or
yeah, that sounds right. I'm thinking they had one that was called Exile on Main Street.
That was the follow-up.
Yeah.
I have the internet at my fingertips. We can do this.
There you go.
We can do this. We can do this. Matchbox 20. Discography. Yourself or someone like you.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one with the guy with the goggles, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Mad Season was the follow-up to that.
Mad
the
Season.
Exile album you were talking about, that was late. That was Exile on Mainstream, 2007. Man.
I want to say that was like a B-sides or something, but it ended up having a bunch of great songs on it.
Great songs. How Far We've Come was excellent.
Yeah.
All Your Reasons, These Hard Times. Yeah, I mean, that era too, like, Bare Naked Ladies were great back then.
Yeah. Goo Goo Dolls.
Goo Goo Dolls, yes. Yes. Incubus.
Yeah,
Incubus. Tell me you're an Incubus fan. I just watched.
Oh, yeah.
They just did a live stream. I was kind of bummed. They just did a live stream to celebrate the 20th anniversary of
The Record with Drive. I can't remember the name of it.
No, Wish You Were Here. But the Morning View.
Morning View, yeah.
Morning View. And so I purchased it, $25, no big deal. But like they just like came on, ripped through every song, it was done. And
Oh,
I was
really?
I was like, this is cool. I mean, I love this album. It was like I was a freshman in college, I think it was. Yeah, freshman in college. So it was like very like tied to like unknowns and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Wish You Were Here is like one of my favorite songs in the world. But yeah, so they came on, ripped through it, and that was it. I was like hoping for some kind of like dialogue, maybe some like background on song or just like anything. Like, hey, we know the world's crazy right now, but thanks for hanging out with us. And whatever. I mean, 20 years is a long time. They even said before it started, they're like, like there was a kind of like a voiceover. They were saying how their lives now are completely different than what it was 20 years ago. They have families and kids and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was it. I was expecting some more. So, I mean, I enjoyed it, but I was also kind of like bummed out.
Yeah, I really miss the, excuse me. I miss the, you'll remember this because you were probably watching this too, but the VH1 storytellers, like behind the music stuff that they would do, where it was like a band, they would play a song live in like a small venue, like a small theater.
Yep.
And then they would cut to the band talking about the song. And maybe they'd be like, oh yeah, we had this drum groove that was really great. And we were working with it for 5 years. And then we finally got like this great melody that made the song pull together. Or they might say like, we had this great song and it just happened overnight in the studio. And we recorded it and it was a #1 hit. Like they would give you this stuff behind the scenes that, to me, I remember watching that was probably even before I like had a guitar, and I was just like, this is magic. I'm like hearing the magician's tricks here and like how this happened, how they made the card disappear and reappear. And I remember seeing that with Matchbox 20. I remember there was a really cool one with Dave Matthews Band that was on VH1, but they did a ton of stuff in the 90s that was like, you got to see, it was like if MTV Unplugged did a song and then stopped, and then they interviewed the band, and then they went right back to the show. It was the coolest thing. I'm sure somebody's doing that on the internet now, and I just haven't discovered it yet.
I'm glad you said that too, because like I feel like back then when bands would do that, it was special. But now I feel like bands are so connected to their audience, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, so any social media platform, the release of a single every 6 weeks, I think it kind of like it loses that magic because it's always there. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's there. It's accessible at any time that I want it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, Kurt Loder just came on and said that, they're going to be on MTV this Friday at 8:00. Like, I have to sit down and watch it. That's special.
Yeah.
If I miss it, I can't record it. There's no DVR. I can't record. I got to watch it now.
Yeah. Or even if you could record it, you were still having to watch the same thing. It wasn't like, a Twitch live stream of somebody that you see them streaming on Friday and I see them on Wednesday, and we kind of get the same thing on different days. Yeah.
I mean, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what's better or worse.
The internet, I always say, is a blessing and a curse. Think about where we would have been without the internet in March of 2020 and through the rest of the year without the internet. How would we have eaten? We had groceries delivered to our homes.
I still have groceries delivered to my home. Guilty. Well, yeah, I got so used to the convenience of it. And I was like, you know what? $5 for them to deliver to my house? Like, shit.
Worth it.
Okay. That's $5 I could spend.
I hate grocery shopping too. I mean,
I do too.
It's like an hour out of my day that I don't ever want to do.
I know.
You're telling me there's some 16-year-old kid down there who's going to do it for me and they're going to deliver it? That's done. Sign me up.
And my wife's an incredible cook, and she loves going to the grocery store, but it's so damn convenient that she doesn't even do it anymore.
Yeah. That's why Jeff Bezos, tripled his income.
He's got all of our money.
All of it.
The funny thing is though, sometimes that 16-year-old who's picking out your groceries doesn't know what a parsnip is. And you get a bag of carrots, and you're like, these are not parsnips. What the hell?
We got cabbage one time when we wanted a head of lettuce. I mean, close, right? But yeah, not the same thing.
Same family, but
I can't put a leaf of cabbage on my turkey sandwich and enjoy it. Yeah. But I mean, I can't imagine where we'd be without the internet during a pandemic. I guess we would have figured it out, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that we adapt. That's what we do. I think we're really good at it. And we'd have figured it out. You may not even have known about it. If you were in some small town without the internet, you might have just been like, well,
there's a pandemic?
There's what? It didn't, because travel has changed too so much because of the internet and accessibility and pricing. I remember even growing up, flights were so expensive. You didn't fly anywhere.
Yeah.
You just didn't. And now it's you can fly a lot of places cheaper than you could drive them.
Yeah. That's the truth. One cool thing that I had happen for the first time in my life was I got booze delivered to the house. Oh,
did you use the Drizzly, or what's the
Well, there's so many of them now. I used a service called, what was it? It was Cask Cartel.
Okay.
Which was awesome because I don't know. I know you're a whiskey connoisseur, right?
Trying to be, yeah.
I am not. I'm more of a beer guy. I like having whiskey. We're having one virtually tonight, right?
Here we go. Cheers.
All right, cheers. I'm drinking Buffalo Trace.
Ooh, great choice.
It's almost impossible to get around here for some reason, in store. I don't know why.
Same.
But I was able to get it from Cask Cartel, but I also paid out the ass for it.
It's been crazy here. Any Buffalo Trace product has been, the guy at the liquor store by my house said it's been allocated. So stores only get so much. It's no longer oh, what are you selling? If you're selling more, we'll give you more, kind of thing. Now it's you get X amount of bottles a month and that's it. Which is crazy. The demand that's gone up. But Buffalo Trace is one of my favorites.
I was going to ask you, what's your go-to?
Ooh, if I could get it and it's not crazy expensive, it would probably be Buffalo Trace. I really love rye whiskeys. I'm just I'm a bold flavor kind of guy. I like black coffee. I like rye whiskey, which is very forward. It's smooth, but it's got a really bold flavor. Old Forester has a rye. It's a 100 proof rye that I think is awesome. I brought this in my studio to show you. I went to Kentucky recently and I scored a bottle of this Elijah Craig rye.
Nice.
Which I'd never even seen before. I didn't know Elijah Craig made a rye, so I'm guessing it's new. But we're in Tennessee, so we're right next to Kentucky, where all the bourbon in the entire world is made.
Right.
So anytime I roll through Kentucky, I always stop at some roadside liquor stores and find stuff where it's like, oh, you could never, like Buffalo Trace is there. It's all over and it's cheap.
Really?
And if I found it in Nashville, it would be crazy expensive. And it would be like, well, it's expensive, but I'm not going to see it for another 6 months. So I better just buy it. In Kentucky, it's growing on trees.
I bought one of the big ones, the huge bottles one time. I should have bought two, but
yeah. I got to do my wife and I, our birthdays are like 2 weeks apart. So we, every year before last year, have gone to Louisville and done distillery tours, and just seen like how the stuff is made. And they have the Bourbon Trail. I'm sure you've heard of that, but, there's a lot of distilleries that are on that. There's a lot of distilleries that aren't. And one of the first ones we did was Buffalo Trace. And it was unbelievable. Like the tour was with this guy that his grandfather had worked at the distillery and his father had worked at the distillery. And he's in his 60s and he works at the distillery. So it's like generations of people have done this. And like,
yeah,
it was wild.
Didn't it start before Prohibition?
Yeah. So they were one of the few, like one of their claims to fame is that they got to operate through Prohibition because it was for medicinal purposes.
Yeah, right.
And what the guy told us was you could get, if you had a doctor's note, which like what was a doctor then, there wasn't a ton of training. Yeah, they were probably still bleeding people out for diseases, but if you had a note, you could get a pint of hooch a week for every man, woman, and child in your family. Which, like, people back then, they were having lots of kids. It wasn't like you had one or two kids. Right. You'd have
8,
half 9, a dozen or 10 kids, and that was pretty normal. So you had a doctor's note for a lot of booze there. Considering it was illegal at the time.
What a world to live in. It's like
no internet.
It's funny to think about. So here's what's funny to think about. Yeah, no internet, but like their problems were like, I hope I don't die at 35 years old, which I guess is a big problem, right?
Yeah, same. Yeah. Same.
But they didn't have to worry about the government spying on you or anybody spying on you for that matter. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy to think about. And it wasn't that long ago either. Like if you really think about it, it's like when I was younger and I thought about things, I'm like, oh, that was like 1,000 years ago. Now that I'm older and like time is slipping by, I'm on a kick now where like I'm almost 40, right? If I'm lucky, I live till I'm 80, which means my life is halfway over.
Yeah.
Right? And then out of those 40 years that I hope to God that I have left, how many of those years are going to be good years? Meaning, no health issues at all, just going through life like I do now. 10, 15, maybe, hopefully 20.
Nah, I think you got at least 20.
Hope.
I think with medicine, man,
I hope
it'll be good.
Good. My dad passed away. He was 52. So now I'm like, oh man, I got like 13 years left.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay, on the flip side of that coin, my dad has been a hockey player his entire life. He just had knee replacement surgery last year and is back playing hockey again. He's 64, 63.
Damn.
Sorry, Dad. 63 or 64 years old. And
that's sweet.
Playing ice hockey like a young man.
But it sounds like he's been in shape though. He's been active his entire life.
Yeah.
See,
yeah.
I'm guilty of not being active like that. I need to start doing that.
They say that's one of the best things for you is to keep your mind and body active. And you don't have to be bench pressing 450 pounds, but like
just gotta move. Is what I
hear. Gotta move. Yeah.
I have kettlebells. I've got kettlebells. I just gotta start swinging them around.
Whew, kettlebells rough, man. That's a hell of a workout. I have a baby now that I carry, and I call that my workout. That was another part of the pandemic for us was we found out we were having a kid. So we've got a 6-month-old little girl.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a wild, amazing ride. It was like everything that everybody ever told you about having kids. It was that, like, everybody told me it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do. And I realized I'm only 6 months in, lots of time left to go, but it has been that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's people who don't have children will never understand, when parents talk about these things. I never understood it until I had a kid. Yeah, I cry at random, just out of pure happiness sometimes. I'm a huge baby. And then there's nights like there was 2 weeks ago when he decided to throw himself off the couch and hit his head off the corner of a coffee table, through his ear and hit him in the back of the head. So I spent the evening in the ER. No stitches, thankfully. No head injury, thankfully. But
he's 4, you said?
He'll be 4 in December. Yeah. And
oh man, so he's probably so scared.
He was, yeah. He was. I mean, I think it's harder. I hope you never experience anything like that. I think it's impossible not to when you're a parent. But it's harder on you than it is them, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, he was initially, he was like, yeah, he was definitely scared and crying because there's blood running down the side of his face. But on the way to the ER, we're trying to make sure that he was okay because he had hit the back of his head too. And we're like, "Are you okay?" Because he just kind of was staring at us. And it turns out he was just like goofing on us. Like he just stared at us. I'm like, are you okay? And he just smiled. I was like, "You son of a bitch."
Yeah, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, concussion, brain damage, all these worst case scenario," and he's laughing it off.
Yeah, the doctor comes out and he's like,
"Man,
okay, he did hit the back of his head, so we put this in the hands of the parents. Do you want to do a CAT scan or not?" And we're like, "Well, I'm not a doctor, so I need some guidance here." He's like, "Well, it's really up to you guys.
I'm here because I don't know."
Yeah, so I'm like, "Well, what are the negative things that like from him having one?" And he's like, "Okay, well, consider." He goes, "The amount of radiation that he will experience is if you were to fly to California and back." I'm like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't think twice about flying to California and back with him."
Wait a minute. Is there radiation when I fly to California?
Apparently.
Oh, shit. I
Apparently.
should have read the fine print. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah. So I'm like, in that case, I'm like, well, I thought he was fine. Like he wasn't acting out of sorts. But then like, it's for my first kid. I'm like, I don't want to have brain damage. Put him in the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't tell me what it costs. Just put him in the thing and we'll make sure he's okay.
Yeah. I've got insurance. I hope it's good. Just do it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of the, it's an absolute joy. I mean, I never thought, I wish I did it earlier. I was about the same age you are.
Yeah.
I was 35. Yeah. But my wife was in school for a long time. She decided to take the long route to a career. We were having a lot of fun together. She's 4 years younger than me. So like we're traveling, doing this and doing that. Mm-hmm. We wanted to make sure that we were, financially ready to have a child. And so it was a little later in life. And if I knew what I know now, I probably would have tried to do it earlier so I wouldn't be an old dad. But it's awesome.
I think old dad is the new young dad. Like you won't be, I don't think you're out of place. I've got, most of my friends don't have kids and they're my age. And I'm like, if you guys are going to do it, like, staying up all night with a newborn is tough. That was really tough at 34. I can't imagine doing it at 44.
Yeah.
That, that's going to be a whole different game.
Yeah.
But, Yeah, man, we did the same thing. Like we got her home and I didn't know anything about babies, and my wife was researched the whole thing and like,
Same.
Basically parented me while parenting the kid. Oh, I lost you. There you are. I remember the first thing we did is we had her on the couch, and we'll do a lot of nights where we'll sit there and just pass the Spotify back and forth and play, I'll play a song, she'll play a song, that kind of thing. And this time we just did it and like cried our eyes out because every song was all of a sudden about either being a parent or our daughter. And it was like, everything you knew now is in a different light and has a different lens on it. And it's crazy to talk to people who are 4 years down the line, and that's not that far,
Yeah.
The kid is not even close to being out of the house. But it's like, you're still experiencing the same thing that I am.
Yeah.
As far as like the parenting side of it, it's like they change so much and so quickly, and I am not changing that quickly.
No.
And it's been 6 months for me. It's not like it's
dude, get ready.
My wife loves to tell me when we're like having a family moment, she'll look at me and she'll be like, someday you're gonna have to walk her down the aisle. And I'm like, God damn it. Like
that's so far from
crying. Now I'm crying. You can't bring that on me. It's like
yeah, there's a good saying that I never heard until I had a child, and the truest thing I've ever heard, I think. But the days are long, and the years are short.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, when you're in it, and like the baby's crying, and you're waking up in the middle of the night, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and she's feeding him, and whatever it is, it feels like the longest day of your life. But now I feel like I blinked, and he was 6 months, and now he's going to be 4 years old. It's such a wild thing.
It is, and I don't know that I would have ever been like, oh yeah, I really want to do this as a parent, but it's been the best thing for me ever. And I think I wouldn't have done it out of fear, just because I'm like, well, what if I'm bad at this? Like, it's not like I get a do-over. It's not like it's not like the kids get a second chance at growing up, but instead of that pressure feeling like too much, it was like, oh, okay, well, this is a lot of pressure, but I've got to rise to it. And it kind of forces you, I think, especially as a guy, to be like, okay, well, I'm going to find a way to be better. I'm going to find a way to be what this kid needs and to make this work. And I don't know, man, maybe you don't feel this way, but I just felt like my wife had these instincts that I was like, I don't know. Like, does she need a diaper? Is she hungry? Like, that was kind of the extent of it for me. And then my wife was like, oh no, I can, like, this is what's going on. And sure enough, that's what was going on.
I definitely have a wife that's way smarter than me.
Same.
So yeah. Same. So she was, I think, more prepared than I was, but we both really just jumped in, and it's so much of it changes. I literally cried at the Blue October concert. So I'm a grown 38-year-old man, and I'm crying at a concert. And it's because he was addicted to drugs. He's sober now. He has been for quite a long time, but he was telling a story about the day that he lost his daughter. And I forget the story exactly. I was too busy crying, but essentially, like, he was supposed to have his daughter. I think he forgot about her or whatever. And his dad came, picked up his daughter, and was like, basically like, you're never going to see her again. And I was just like thinking to myself, like, how devastating that would have been for me if, like, someone told me that I couldn't see my kid again.
Yeah.
And what a place that he must have been in, that he was choosing drugs over his child because I know that there's nothing in my life that I would ever choose over my son. So in his situation, like, that's just wild to think about. But then how, he cleaned up his act. He's got full custody of his daughter now, and life is good. He's sober and he's, happier than he could ever imagine. So yeah. So I'm hearing the story of like complete sadness and like then happiness because he got her back and, all this kind of like, so I'm like a roller coaster ride at a freaking concert, the Sherman Theater in Stroudsburg. I'm like, what is happening here? Like, what has fatherhood done to me?
Yeah, I've definitely cried more in the past 6 months than I probably have in my entire adult life. And it's like, you feel things differently. And it used to be, oh, suck it up. And now it's like, well, yeah, it's not about me anymore. It's not like, it's not affecting just me. Or even like just my wife, who's a grown, very capable adult human who could handle herself. Like, it's this innocent thing that like can't take care of itself and needs me on some level to take care of it. Like but it's also like, as much as, like I said, the pressure makes you rise, it's the most inspiring thing, like, as an artist, to not just writing songs, but just like every day you wake up and it's like, what are they going to do today? What is she's going to do something different today. And like, and I wake up and I'm like, if I don't get a cup of coffee in the next half an hour, I'm going to be a really terrible person. And there's my daughter just smiling ear to ear at me, regardless of how much coffee I've had or how happy I am. So instantly I'm like, well, this is the best day ever. Yeah. The coffee is just a bonus. If she's happy, then I can find a way to be happy too. And it's been a really cool thing.
Yeah. I'm happy for you, man. I always I'm a sucker for happiness. Like, I cry at weddings because I see, two people the happiest that I've ever seen them on their wedding day. Friends reunited at weddings, and now it's, other people finding the joy of parenthood that kind of gets me. But yeah,
it's crazy. I'm excited for some of my friends who don't have kids to do that and to like experience that. And I don't know, just it's a different world. It's weird.
And I say that, parenthood is not for everyone. If you don't want kids, that's fine. I'm not going to try and push it on you, but for just one day, and not to make them want kids, but just for one day, I want them to experience the joy of having that kid. Just one day, just to experience it. Then, you can go on with your life, and, you can go on without children if you want to, but it's definitely a different emotion.
Well, I think it's kind of like, if you've ever been the single guy, and like you've got some friends who are in, rewind maybe like 10 or 15 years, and you're the single guy and you've got friends who are in relationships. What are they doing? Them and the person they're in the relationship with, they're trying to set you up with somebody, right? Why? You're like, I'm single, I'm fine with this. And they're like, no, I found so much fulfillment and happiness in a healthy relationship with another person. And they want you to have that too. And maybe you're, maybe not ready for it at that point, and that's okay, but their intention is good.
Yeah.
They're trying to show you something that they've found that's really special and has brought them fulfillment. And I think it's the same thing when you're a parent and you're like, oh man, if you want to do it, like, have a kid. But it's also a bigger commitment.
Sacrifice too. I mean,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
You're dating a girl. I mean, you're both adults. You can be like, hey, listen, I'm going to do this and you go do that. We'll be all right. But a kid, you can't just leave it there.
Nope. It's a different level of responsibility and commitment, and it doesn't go away. That's the other thing. It's like
ever. My mom,
you got to die to get out of it. That's the only way. They're going to cling to you until you die. And then probably beyond that, but we won't know.
Yeah. Well, let's leave it on a happy note. I could probably sit here and talk to you all night, but my two listeners probably don't want to hear that.
Yeah, they got stuff to do.
But so real quick before we wrap things up, we talked about the song that's going to be released on the streaming platforms on November 5th. Is that still accurate?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Borrowed Sparks, November 5th, Tom Petty cover of Refugee. And then a few days later, November 9th, they're going to release the live video of that song. And then where can people find you on all the social channels?
Everything's at Borrowed Sparks, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, borrowedsparks.com. I don't have the TikTok yet. I probably need to do it. I'll be honest with you, downloaded the app. I just haven't done it yet. It's
same.
It's a lot. You know,
I'm on it.
It's a big step.
It's funny, dude. Like, I'm not that funny. I'm not that creative. No one cares what I have to say or do.
I can do one thing, and that's pick up the guitar and play a song for you. I feel like that's not entertaining enough to designate an entire TikTok account.
Yeah.
To just that, or maybe I could take videos of myself drinking bourbon, but that doesn't seem very interesting either. So I don't know. I had to think of some other angle for it.
Yeah, I don't know. Good luck. Well, if you find one, let me know, because I don't have that much time either. I feel like that takes a lot of time out of your day.
It's not even the time. I don't worry about the time as much of me like posting something. It's how much time am I going to waste like scrolling, like, okay, I got on this thing to post a video, but now I got sucked into 30 minutes or an hour of like, oh, what's this thing? Like, I already have 3 other social media accounts that I do that with. Like, I don't need a 4th one. I just need them to rotate. I just need one to die. Let's quit one, add a new one. I can handle that.
I reserve TikTok for bathroom time. That's
smart.
That's where I leave it, because I'll get stuck. Like you're saying, I get sucked in. I can't sacrifice time with my family. I can't sacrifice time at work. But that's all.
TikTok is a bathroom app, is what you're telling me.
Yes.
It's a toilet app only.
Yeah. Now, there's times where you'll try and stand up and your legs will be numb. But
your pinkies go numb.
These are the sacrifices that we have to make. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It's been like, what, an hour and a half now? Hour 40 minutes?
Yeah, man, I've enjoyed it. It's been good.
Been a minute. So I'm thankful for the internet for instances like this, because you know what? Had we not had the internet, I may never have known who you were. I may never had the pleasure to talk to you for an hour and a half. So for that, I'm thankful.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed it too. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Cool, man. Thanks. Enjoy your family. Enjoy that little girl. And I'd like to say I hope to see you soon, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, the world is as big as it is. It's very small. So who knows?
You'll see me digitally soon.
Maybe
if not in person.
I've worked a lot of venues over the years. I'm still tied to them. Maybe we get you a show up here in the Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area.
Yeah, man, I'd love that. That'd be great.
If I'm traveling to Nashville for some reason, I'll hit you up.
Yeah, come on down.
It's possible.
We'd have a good time.
It's possible.
Yeah.
All right, man. Best of luck with the new song, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, brother.
See you, dude.